Britain and France are routinely condemned for their appeasement of Hitler and Mussolini in the years leading up to the Second World War. This saw Britain and France do little to combat growing Italian and German aggression during the mid to late 1930s. It's argued that appeasement allowed the two fascist powers to grow in strength and made World War II inevitable. Furthermore, it's also said that it needlessly condemned millions of Europeans to live under regimes that they did not want to. The big question is, did appeasement actually work and achieve what the Allies wanted? Before continuing, it's very important to note that the governments of France and the UK weren't free to take as hard a line as they wanted to. Their respective populations were fiercely against any future war, and Britain specifically was suffering from economic malaise, which was combined with the simple fact its power was now waning relative to Germany. As such, both nations had militaries which were underfunded, and fixing their problems would take many years. So, the first major act of appeasement came when Hitler publicly announced the reintroduction of conscription in 1935, which had been forbidden in the Treaty of Versailles. The British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald didn't want to denounce the German decision, lest they withdraw from talks over limiting the size of their navy. The next problem came with the Italian War and subsequent conquest of Ethiopia. Whilst Britain didn't want a stronger Italian empire, they realised that militarily they weren't able to do much about it. France took the lead here and pressured Britain not to pursue too strong a response. France's thinking here was that if Italy felt too isolated, it would turn to Germany for an alliance, and that couldn't be allowed. In early 1936, Germany remilitarised the Rhineland, meaning that it stationed troops there, which was something also forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles. The French had a larger and more capable army at this point and could have quite easily defeated the German troops there, but political problems at home stopped any interference. Europe was pretty quiet for a couple of years until early 1938, when Germany annexed Austria and Hitler subsequently turned his attention to Czechoslovakia. Specifically this land, the Sudetenland, which was populated mostly by ethnic Germans and which Hitler then demanded be given to him. The British and the French were in a bit of a conundrum here because they wanted to guarantee the independence of Czechoslovakia, but they also knew that military intervention wouldn't have stopped Germany from conquering it. As such, the Munich Conference was held, which saw British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, Mussolini, Hitler and the French Prime Minister Edouard Daladier come to an agreement. It was decided that Czechoslovakia would cede the Sudetenland and Germany would promise not to conquer the rest of it, until it did in March of 1939. The reason for throwing Czechoslovakia to the Germans was that both France and Britain knew that militarily they weren't able to fight yet. You see, the Allies weren't fools. They didn't believe that one day Hitler would be happy and stop eating countries. They simply knew that some would have to be sacrificed to buy them time to rearm. When Italy invaded and conquered Albania in April of 1939, the French decided that there could be no more appeasement. Instead, a preemptive war would be necessary to protect Greece and contain Mussolini, and when Daladier brought his plan to the British, their response was agreement. Just kidding, more appeasement. In fact, Chamberlain asked France to consider ceding colonial territory to the Italians in order to placate Mussolini and try to dissuade him from joining Germany in the war. France said no to this, and both allies largely accepted that a war with Germany would mean a war with Italy at this point. Of course, appeasement couldn't last forever, and when Poland, with British and French guarantees, refused to cede territory to Germany, it did. The Second World War kicked off, and to many this is proof that appeasement failed miserably. This assumes that appeasement was meant to prevent war, which was not the Allies' intention. It was supposed to allow Britain and France to rearm, which they both did. British defence spending rose rapidly during the 5 years leading up to the war, with the government spending 40% of the national budget on defence after the Sudetenland crisis. And as for France, they used the time to massively increase naval spending. There was, however, one major flaw in sacrificing other countries to allow for more time to rearm. It allowed Germany and Italy to continue their military build-up, and frankly, these two used their time much more effectively than either France or Britain did. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with extra thanks to my patrons that you see on screen now. And a special thanks to James Bizanet, Party Boyko, Azarka Flash, Chris Wicker, Rob Waterhouse, Michael Reynolds, Gustav Swan, Maggie Paxkowski, Winston Kaywood, Raphael, Adam Harvey, Anthony Beckett, Sky Chappelle and the Amusement Parchives.